Hey y'all, this is Coach Burkett, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with you some tips on improving your classroom experience through providing clear directions for your students. I know that delivering this information through YouTube is not the best way to learn it, but it is the best way given our situation. And the way that you can engage this material is to reflect upon your current delivery method and consider how you can improve for the benefit of your students' confidence and your own personal sanity. We know that the classroom experience for teachers goes much more smoothly when students are feeling valued and heard and confident in what is expected of them. The first thing you need to do is to develop some essential routines and procedures. Expectations help provide clarity and security for students. We have a certain routine that we follow in English 10 every day. The students are going to immediately go to their desks after they've handled their pencil sharpening or whatever they need to do and begin their bell ringer. If you have this presentation, you can click on the link and look at an example bell ringer that we have done in the past. They typically are ACT prep, but that bell ringer allows me to take attendance without disturbing class. It gets the kids the sense of urgency to get to class. It helps to cut down on tardies. It just helps to provide a situation where students know what to expect. I have very simple classroom rules. Coach B's 4 P's. The students are expected to be prompt, prepared, polite, and productive while they are in class. So they need to show up on time. When they show up, they need to be prepared, need to have their Chromebook or their pencil or whatever it is that you want to set. They should be polite. How many of you have had that student come up and say, Coach, you graded this wrong or something like that? And immediately our defenses get, it's like a peacock in his feathers fluff out. And so I encourage students, hey, I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna mess you up on your grades. It's part of it. But be polite, and we will absolutely get it corrected. And the more polite you are, the more quickly I'm likely to act. It's just human nature. And of course, they all know they are supposed to be productive. Every assignment that we give should have clear expectations and, whenever possible, and it usually is possible, rubrics. The last thing we need for routines and procedures is a level of what Bernice McCarthy calls with itness. And that is be aware if something is not working and be able to adapt and utilize what does work. Be able to go away from the lesson plan or the game plan if you're a coach when necessary in order to make sure, again, that your students feel the expectations of them are clear and they're secure in that knowledge. Withitness is a great word. I use it often, but it's not my word. It is Bernice McCarthy who authored the format learning system so many years ago. In my class, we cover the Lord of the Flies, and one of the things is just an example for withitness. In Florence City, we're observed, and they don't tell us they're going to observe us. They just walk in your door and start sitting down and listening. And we talked about the boys having to cut weeds away from the shoreline in order to build huts and live and whatnot. If you don't know, Lord of the Flies is about a plane crash, and several military school boys, ages 6 to 13, are stranded without any adult supervision. And so one child is elected to take supervision. He says, we've got to start cutting this brush back. And because, of course, in a sophomore classroom, we use the word weed, several kids decided to snicker and start talking about they growing weed, they gonna take it back with them, and all this kind of stuff. And I rolled with it. I didn't cut them off. I didn't tell them it was inappropriate because they never got to that level. And I laughed with them and I said, "How much money do you think they could earn if all of them carried back as much weed as they possibly could?" And just kind of let the conversation roll. My assistant principal, who was evaluating me at the time or observing me at the time, included in her whetstone that was a good moment for the kids because It made them feel like they were a part of the conversation, that they could joke a little bit about it. They didn't have to be serious all the time. And it really allowed them to engage the novel in a way that made sense to them. The first thing really you've got to do when you get past establishing routines and procedures is develop a strong voice. If you're in a hurry or you're moving around, that's distracting for the students. So, how many times have you caught yourself handing out a worksheet or explaining an assignment and you're moving through desks and turning your back to one person and turning your face towards another? And so, students get half the instruction. Find a spot, stand still, use a loud voice, be clear and precise in what you want your students to do. The new teacher orientation that we had at FHS was a prime example of this. One of our presenters was walking through the rows of chairs, and nearly half of us, had got about half of the lesson. As he said that he didn't need a microphone and he was just going to talk loud and walk among us. But when he was on the opposite side of the building, it was impossible to hear what he was saying. Square up, stand still, formal diction. When you use colloquialisms, of course, having withedness at times using colloquial or local language is fun and is effective. But for the vast majority of situations, it's better to use formal diction so that there are no misunderstandings. If we stay still, face our students, and use formal words and tones, our students will sense the importance of the direction. Because if you're, moving around and you're not really paying attention to what you're saying, then the students are going to feel, why can't I move around? Okay. If Coach Burkett is, just kind of casually handing out worksheets and walking through desks, and why can't I get up and go to the bathroom or get up and sharpen my pencil during this time? Because he's not taking it serious. He's just casually walking around, so I should be able to do that too. While that's a little bit ridiculous, it certainly conveys the message that it's not as serious as it would be if you were squared up, standing still, formal diction, loud voice. And so the students would sense your tone of seriousness and they would listen. I know this is true. I've used it in my classroom often, and my classroom headaches have gone down dramatically in the last 5 or 6 years since I started being more formal in my direction giving. Perfect practice makes perfect. Don't be afraid to practice your routines or your teacher voice. If it's something new for you, stand in front of the mirror and practice away. Consider the effective techniques. We all know that reflection is a fantastic practice. How do you typically deliver your instruction? Think back, not lessons, but the directions to complete assignments that go with those lessons. How do you typically deliver those? Take a moment to consider them. Now, considering your learning targets and what you expect from your students. Focus on clarity of thought and precision of language when writing or verbalizing your directions to students. Again, it not only helps to bring about student learning, but it also helps to decrease any classroom management problems due to students being bored or confused. Thinking back, how can you improve your delivery? If you go back to the previous slide, stand still, face up, that means face towards the students, using a clear voice. Have you been able to remember a time where you didn't do that? I certainly can remember times in my career where I didn't. So, how can you improve your delivery? Begin lessons by giving clear instructions. State desired quality of work. You got to establish those expectations. Students need to know what's expected of them. You can have students paraphrase the directions back to you. Ensure that all distractions have been removed. The big thing now is earbuds, earphones. Really, what they want to do is say, "I'm listening to music on my phone," so they can text or whatever. The music's not a big deal. They could do that on their computers. Describe expectations, activities, and evaluation procedures. And you could start with a highly motivating activity. In Florence City Schools, we've moved to something called Kagan strategies. I highly recommend that you look at those. It's basically think, pair, share, which is what you're familiar with, but it's just a lot more involved and it's updated. And the kids in my classroom have actually enjoyed some of the Kagan strategies. Hand up, mix up, pair up with new updated pop music is something that my kids really enjoy. Build your lesson upon prior student knowledge. When we expect students to complete work and they don't know how, then the clear directions are not going to matter. There's an excellent website, keen.edu. The link is right here. Effective classroom management techniques, and it kind of walks through how to give better instruction to your students. Okay, gang. Now all you need to do is look for ways to implement these strategies. You can piecemeal some suggestions, or you could do a total makeover. Just remember your goal: students learning. As Jim Rollins, the superintendent up in Arkansas, says, teach them all. You can email me your exit slips. You've already got my email, but it's there for you again, mburkett@una.edu. I would really like it. I am a follow back girl. If you follow me on Twitter at Burkett Learning, you'll continue to receive tips. We can communicate back and forth, and there's a world of information going out on Twitter, especially right now during this COVID-19 situation that we have. A lot of experts on Twitter giving out great advice. I highly recommend you take advantage of that. Thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to contact me if you have any questions.